Hi, I'm Jay Goldman. You are watching Mr. Mobile on Butterscotch.com. Thanks for tuning in today for a look at this, a Samsung Forever, Samsung's new quote-unquote smartphone, also known as the SGH A886, which is a little less catchy than Forever. It's a pretty good low-end smartphone, but there are some pretty common design flaws that we've seen in a bunch of other phones, and you would sort of hope that by this point the handset manufacturers had figured out that these weren't great design decisions. Anyway, we'll take a look at them and you can draw your own conclusions. This is a quad-band GSM phone, so it'll work in pretty much any GSM network out there. It's also a dual-band 3G, so you get 3.6 megabits per second of high-quality HSDPA, which means lots of fast data coming down to here. The phone can't make quite as much use of it as you would hope from a smartphone. In fact, it's certainly no iPhone or BlackBerry, but lots of high-speed data coming down all the same. 3-inch touchscreen on the front here, 240 by 400 pixels, so not super high resolution, but not bad. It is not a multi-touch screen, so single touch only, like we've seen with a lot of the lower-end smartphones. Still entirely useful as a touchscreen, just none of the cool pinch and zoom that you've seen on the iPhone and things like that. Back end side here has a 2-megapixel camera on it. It does video, but there is no flash, so you're only shooting in sort of nice light conditions. 72 megabytes of onboard memory, stores a lot of photographs and music, and if you want to store more, there's a micro SD card slot on the back that will hold up to a 32 meg card. Now, that brings us, of course, to our first design flaw. In order to install a memory card, you have to take the back off, which is not all that uncommon, but unfortunately, you have to take the battery off as well. The card slot is located underneath the SIM card here, and you would slide it in by taking off the battery and popping it in. And that's a design flaw that we've seen on a bunch of phones, and it's something that people continuously complain about because, of course, if you've got different memory cards with different stuff on them, you have to shut the phone down and take the battery off every time. So not perhaps the best design decision. Phone manufacturers, take note, we don't like it. It does have an accelerometer in it, which allows us to do screen rotation like we've seen on the iPhone and a bunch of other platforms as well. So you can turn it this way, and in fact, turning it this way gives you a full-size QWERTY keyboard, so you can type out your text messages and that kind of thing without having to do the T9 predictive input that you have to do otherwise when the phone is in this mode. So if you're looking for an entry-level smartphone that has a normal QWERTY keyboard on it, this is a pretty good choice. It is a soft keyboard, though, no hard keyboard on here. It has a GPS, or assisted GPS, which is not actually standalone GPS. This is carrier-assisted GPS. It will locate you. It's not quite as accurate, and it won't work without a cell connection, but it does have sort of rudimentary GPS functionality. It runs TouchWiz, which is Samsung's operating system for smartphones, and it's heavily built around widgets instead of apps. So there's a lot of sort of widgets on here that allow you to do things like a world clock or messaging and that kind of thing. You can have a bunch of them running at the same time. There's a little button on the side here that'll let you switch between the things that are running. But they are sort of widgets, so you're not getting full-scale applications, and there's nothing like an app store that we've seen on the Android, BlackBerry, or iPhone platforms. So you're pretty much limited to what comes on the phone. They've got a browser on here that does web browsing. They say it's full HTML browsing. It's not really what you've come to expect from smartphone platforms that have decent web browsers. It sort of renders HTML. It doesn't handle JavaScript and things like that. So you can do basic web browsing, and certainly websites that are built for mobile phones will work quite well on it. The other design flaw that I wanted to mention was actually the accessory port, which is located on the side over here underneath a little flap. And if you're looking at it there and thinking that doesn't look like USB, that's because it's not USB. It's in fact a proprietary type of plug that Samsung's got here. That's what the plug actually looks like when we're plugging that end in. So what does that mean for you? It means you can't use headphones unless they have this little plug on the end. You also can't use a standard USB cable when you're plugging it into the phone because it has to have their little proprietary end on it. So that means you're always going to have to carry the cables that came with the phone, and any accessories that you buy that plug in are going to have to come from Samsung. This is a really bad design decision. We've seen it with a bunch of platforms. For a long time, the HTC phones did that. They've just come around to putting on standard USB and headphone jacks, and that would probably be my biggest drawback with this platform. You're really limited in the accessories you can buy that plug in. Now, it does have Bluetooth. You can use Bluetooth headsets, so if you're sort of worried about the headphones, stereo Bluetooth headsets might be a way to go. Conclusion, not a bad entry-level phone. It's actually pretty cheap. You can get it for about $80 on contract, about $250 without, depending on who your carrier is. Don't expect a smartphone, though. It is an entry-level phone. If you're looking for something that you primarily use as a phone, you'd like to be able to take some photos, maybe a little bit of video with it, and you really just want a QWERTY keyboard so that when you're typing out text messages but not email, you can do that without having to use the T9, this is probably a pretty good one to take a look at. Again, the Samsung Forever, you can find it for most major carriers. I'm Jay Goldman. This has been Mr. Mobile on Butterscotch.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.